You know that moment when you look at your phone and feel a small drop in your stomach? Not because there's bad news, but because there's nothing. They haven't replied, just silence. So you tell yourself not to overthink it. You put the phone down, and you pick it back up again 5 minutes later anyway. So your mood is dependent on how they respond. You're up when they're warm, and down when they're distant. You replay the last message you sent. You wonder if it was too much. Was I too honest or too needy? You tell yourself this is just what caring feels like. But here's the part most people miss. This isn't connection. It's you slowly organizing your inner world around someone else's behavior. And the longer you do it, the harder it becomes to tell where you end and they begin. That's why detachment feels so hard, not because you care too much, but because you've tied your sense of safety to someone else's attention. Detachment feels wrong to a lot of people, almost threatening, because humans are wired to bond. We're built for closeness, attachment, and connection. So when people talk about detachment, it can sound like emotional shutdown, like indifference, or like giving up. That isn't what detachment actually is. Attachment itself isn't the problem. The problem is when attachment turns into fusion. Fusion is when someone doesn't just matter to you. They become a fixture, an extension of your identity, a regulator for your worth, your safety, and your mood. When you're fused with someone, objectivity disappears. Everything feels urgent, every shift feels personal, and every silence feels loaded. So you're no longer responding to what's actually happening. You're reacting to what it means about you. And that's why detachment feels impossible in those moments. Because detaching feels like removing the one thing holding you together. But here's the part most people don't want to look at. If someone is holding you together, you're already paying the price. A lot of people describe themselves the same way. I just care too much. I love deeply. When I'm in, I'm all in. And on the surface, that sounds like a strength, something generous, and something to be proud of. But love doesn't become excessive when it's healthy. Care doesn't turn into a problem just because it's deep. If someone experiences your feelings as too much from a grounded place, then what's happening isn't love overflowing, it's an imbalance. Often, what gets called caring too much is actually anxiety or fear, a need for reassurance that hasn't learned how to self-soothe yet. It's vigilance dressed up as devotion, control disguised as concern. And this matters, because when you tell yourself the story that your problem is loving too much, you start shrinking the wrong part of yourself. You try to feel less, you try to want less, and you try to become easier to be with. But your care was never the issue. The issue is what your care is being asked to carry. And here's the truth that most people never realize. You're not attached because you love deeply. You're attached because you're afraid of what happens when no one is beside you. That's the pivot. Detachment doesn't start with distance. It starts with safety. And if your sense of safety is outsourced to another person, detachment will always feel like a threat. Most people are asking the wrong question. They ask, how do I stop caring? How do I stop feeling anxious? How do I stop getting attached? But those questions stay on the surface. You might learn how to delay your responses, how to distract yourself, how to appear less invested. And it works until it doesn't. Because the anxiety was never the problem. It was information. Real detachment begins when you stop trying to control the symptom and start listening to what it's pointing at. Detachment is rooted in objectivity. Objectivity means you can step back far enough to see what's actually happening, instead of what your fears are telling you is happening. It means you can notice your reactions without immediately obeying them. Because anxiety isn't a command, it's a signal. When you feel anxious because someone hasn't replied, the issue usually isn't the message. It's the meaning you've unknowingly attached to it. Fear of abandonment, fear of being forgotten, or fear of not mattering. That's something you can work with. That's something that's actionable. Trying to control someone else's behavior to soothe that fear isn't. You might get relief if they respond faster today, but tomorrow it'll be something else or someone else. If the foundation stays the same, the pattern will simply repeat. There's an emotional shift that's meant to happen as we grow up, and a lot of people don't consciously make it. As a child, attachment equals survival. Your identity, your safety, and your worth depend on that bond. So you learn something early. Connection equals safety, and disconnection equals danger. But as an adult, that equation has to change. Your worth can't depend on whether someone stays, responds, or understands you. That doesn't mean relationships don't matter. It means they can't be the foundation of your identity. When your sense of self is anchored entirely in another person, detachment feels like death. Because on some level, it is. It's the death of the version of you that outsourced safety. This is where people slide into roles without realizing it. They become the detective, scanning for signs, and reading between the lines, trying to get ahead of what might go wrong, or the savior, fixing, overfunctioning, carrying emotional weight that was never theirs to hold. And these roles feel active, they feel loving, and they feel responsible. But they're driven by fear of losing connection, fear of what happens if you stop managing the relationship. And here's the cost. Being a detective steals your peace, and being a savior steals your energy. You're always working, monitoring, and anticipating. And the more you do it, the more invisible your own needs become. You're not a detective, and you're not a savior. You're not meant to earn safety through vigilance. The moment you abandon your own story to live inside someone else's, exhaustion becomes inevitable. Here's the part most people miss. You don't practice detachment by trying to detach. You practice detachment by building a relationship with yourself that you're no longer willing to abandon. Detachment is a byproduct, not a technique. And when you value yourself, you stop negotiating with what hurts. Not because you're cold, but because you're anchored. And when you trust yourself, you don't need to control people, because you know you can walk away if something costs you too much. That's the difference. Detachment doesn't come from indifference. It comes from self-value. You are the only constant in your life. People change, feelings change, and circumstances change, but you're the one person you'll wake up with every single day. When you place yourself back at the center of your own life, everything else becomes contextual instead of defining. You don't need to force yourself to let go. You naturally stop gripping so tightly, because nothing feels worth the loss of self anymore, not intensity or chemistry. And this isn't cynicism, it's clarity. Detachment doesn't make you less loving, it makes your love cleaner. You can care deeply without being consumed. You can stay present without overfunctioning. And you can feel without spiraling. You'll still get anxious sometimes. You'll still have worries. And you'll still feel old triggers. But they won't get to run your life. You'll recognize them for what they are. Old signals and old wiring. Information, not instruction. A lot of people think they need to be fully healed before they can detach properly. That doesn't exist. Healing isn't a finish line. It's something you live inside. Detachment doesn't require perfection. It requires awareness. It requires noticing the moment your attachment crosses into self-abandonment and choosing yourself there, quietly, without drama and without explanation. Detachment isn't letting go of people. It's refusing to let go of yourself. If detachment feels impossible, it might not be because you're too attached. It might be because you haven't been attached to yourself. You're not flawed, and you're not broken. You're wired to protect connection, even when it costs you. Detachment is just the moment you decide that you matter too, because nothing in this world is worth losing yourself for. You've been watching The Soft Skills. Like and subscribe for more gentle takes on relationships and self-love.